Alright, it is Ron for Terrible Terrible Damage, bringing you a Bronze League game, and we'll get right into it with our red Terran. In the bottom left is Bob, and the upper right, our blue Zerg, Woodrow. So, we're going to be, in this cast, we're going to try and insert a bit more in terms of suggestions on where to improve, as opposed to compared to some of the other casts where we're just looking to have fun and keep track of what's going on in the game. So we see our ranks. We got a rank 10 versus rank 27 Bronze Leaguers. So that is good. Now, just while the action is going on there, let's just change our gameplay to selected. Sorry about that. Let's get back into it. So if we look here, not a whole lot to say in the early game. We actually have our some units on follow command here. That is unfortunate. Occasionally, if you have your rally point, you can accidentally set that to an SCV by right-clicking on the SCV instead of a mineral patch, and then you'll have those rally to each other. Looks like Bob has realized his mistake relatively early, so that's good. It would really be a shame to see that have a big impact in the game, just having those workers not mining. It hurts a little with that time, but it's not going to be too big of a deal. We see a pretty early pool here out of Zerg. So our Terran player now scouts this, seeing that early pool. It's not super early. A 6 pool would be done at about, would be done just before 2 minutes. This looks like it was probably, based on the supply, it looks like a 10 or 11 pool after Overlord. So it's not super early. You can have this wall off done in time. We actually are cutting SCVs right now is Terran. So this has to be aggression. If you're cutting SCVs, you have to even it out by doing some damage to your opponent. So now we're getting out Marines. We're seeing this 2 racks. Looks like 11-11. Often you'll see one of these barracks proxied if you're going for that early of a 2 racks, just because it's all in-ish. You're cutting economy to do it. So if you just want to do 2 racks pressure, you'd do something like 12 supply, 14 supply on those barracks. And now we have gas coming down. This is a bit inconsistent with what we're doing. We don't need these 2 barracks this early if we're going to be doing something with gas. Also, we want to get that orbital command earlier, usually just after this barracks is done. You can get it on either 15 or 16 supply. 15, you'll have to wait and cut SCV time by just a little. 16, the barracks will be done ahead of it, and you'll have to wait for an SCV to finish. Either way doesn't make a big difference. Now, seeing Bob move into a 3rd barracks. So it looks like it's going to be some sort of 3 racks push. With stem is the closest thing to a common build we're going to see out of here. We do have an expansion here. The most common opener for Zerg against Terran is going to be that hatch first. I actually have a cancel on the macro hatch, and just interestingly enough, I wonder if that was a misclick. But going pool first isn't necessarily all that bad. You can make it work. It's just that if you do hatch first, you can pretty much always defend it, so there isn't a whole lot of reason not to do it. Now, there are only 2 workers on this gas. Nothing being done with this gas either. You usually want to line that up as quickly as possible. Looks like he's just noticing that now. There we go. You want to line that up with when you get 100 gas. If you're going to leave guys on gas, you should have a specific reason for it. For example, if you're going for a quick lair, getting banelings because you're afraid of some sort of push, or something like that. Otherwise, you should pull them off to get as many minerals as possible. We do have a very quick lair. Now, again, the lair should actually have a reason. If you're getting it this quickly, it should be for a specific purpose. We haven't seen much in the way of droning out of our Zerg opponent, still just on 11, so that is way behind where it should be. We should be seeing a lot more drones. We're actually seeing a macro hatchery up already. We shouldn't see that. We would want to see a queen out at a natural before anything like that. Especially off of so few drones, you should not need this extra hatchery anytime soon. Now we do have actually up to 4 racks now. So this isn't something that Bob can really support, especially adding on a factory. Basically, if you're doing this, this is effectively all in. If some were more playing properly economically, you would be so far behind if this push did not do significant, almost game-ending damage, that you basically have already lost the game. So also consider the expansion timing. If you haven't expanded by 7 minutes, you're starting to get all-in-ish. After 8, you're pretty much considered all-in at a higher level. Of course here, this could completely fail and Bob could still be plenty in this game. He actually has as many workers as his opponent, but this is a very late, very weak push considering. Normally you kite back a bit just to limit the surface area. These Marines do not have any upgrades complete as of yet. If you're going to be doing a push like this, you'd be wanting to line it up with some sort of upgrade, such as stim, which is not yet done. You could have lined that up much better, but actually managing to do good damage here. This really shouldn't have done damage, but it worked out. So if we look at the state of the game, Bob's in a decent position. He doesn't have an expansion as of yet, so that is a problem, but his worker count is a little ahead. Add on mules, he's in a very good position, but he's not spending his actual energy. You need to be dropping these mules every 50 energy, or else you're letting that strength go to waste. Terran will typically be behind in workers because he cannot produce them as quickly as the other races. Zerg with the Larva Inject can produce more workers at once, and Protoss with Chrono Boost can produce them individually more quickly, cutting off 10 seconds of the build time every single Chrono Boost. So you definitely need to be using those mules to keep up in economy. Still building up a lot of units. Again, you want to be expanding. If Bob had expanded at 6 minutes, his army could be much, much larger than this is right now. He could have medevacs out. He could have combat shields done, concussive shell, +1, and a much better economy. However, he spent very much into these barracks, which he is not building from consistently. So that is something to work on, but it's better to be spending your money than letting it float. So I don't mind having too many production facilities as long as you're keeping your money low. On the Zerg side, again, we're still only at 19 drones. We need a lot more than that. In terms of the Zerg's vision, it is good that he has a watchtower. I would still want another watchtower here. This Overlord is very useful to see that he has not taken an expansion. So if you see your opponent has not taken an expansion, you know they're relatively all in. So what you want to do, it's a bit difficult at this point in the game because of how the timings are all messed up, but you want to drone up, keep an eye for any sort of early threat, and then the longer your opponent stays on one base, you start adding in more units and more units with maybe the occasional drone just to keep pushing yourself forward, and then you can crush that push. But you need the actual initial backbone of your economy, which isn't really here at only 18 drones. The Terran should actually be ahead right now in economy because mules, which he has managed to use. Actually, it looks like he used them on scans. Sorry if I missed that. So he's gotten an idea of what's in the main base. Now the Spire does complete, but our Zerg player doesn't really have the economy to support it. Only 6 drones here at the natural, leaving then 12 in the main, and 1 queen in the main for both of these hatcheries. You should only be able to inject 1 hatchery, injecting every 25 energy. Now here comes a great big drop out of Bob. Again, Bob is getting this expansion finally, but this is at 15 minutes. This is about 10 minutes late to be expanding. Okay, more fairly 8 minutes since it is now done. But that's very, very late, and he should definitely be much more behind than he is. But again, we are working in bronze, so we're trying to improve on everything. Comes a big drop. This is a bit awkward. That did not help at all. In terms of engaging Zerglings, you just want to try and make sure they don't get a full surround, so you can stutter step back into a corner. But that may be a bit much to ask this slow in the league. So just stem and attack move is something that focus on. Just straight up attack moving. You're probably going to do a lot better than any of your micro is going to do. Prioritizing that macro hatch isn't very useful. The hatch isn't going to be very good for economy, so it helps kill the actual production a bit, but there's so much banked larva anyway. I don't see that as a big deal. I much would have rather seen him take out the spawning pool, Baneling Nest, Spire, that kind of thing, or in addition do as many lings as he can. I don't think that macro hatch was that important, but did some damage. Keep in mind the supply is actually relatively even. And the workers are also relatively even. Terran is ahead by 2, plus mules means he's in a very good position. Now here come a lot of Zerglings. These Zerglings are +1, but our Terran army does have medevacs and stim. So these lings may be able to trade evenly with the Marines, but should probably just all die. No stim going in. Again, he's running around. Actually made that a lot better for the Zerglings, but the Zerglings were also target firing there for a minute. Again, I see a lot of lower league players overdo it in terms of micro, and yep, trades almost perfectly evenly there. Trading those 2 armies, but that wasn't worth it for the Zerg at all. He doesn't really have the economy to back that up and is now way behind in supply. But something I see a lot from lower level players is trying to over micro. Basically, they're trying to micro but doing it very incorrectly. So a lot of their units just end up running around doing nothing and taking damage and dying. So first focus on just attack moving at your opponent. And then focus on maybe one more thing, like getting the idea of stutter step in a micro trainer if you're Terran, or splitting your units to get a better concave, that kind of thing. Something very simple to start, and then add in other things along the way. Just make sure that you're attack moving and not just running around and taking damage. We've seen that a couple times in this game. Oh, and also make sure not occasionally you can target fire, especially in low numbers, but in the lower leagues it's going to be much harder to make that decision. So avoid target firing as much as possible. It usually makes, especially in large armies, you'll target fire like one stalker and everything will fire at that, and then the rest of your army gets decimated by everything else, so they're not maximizing their damage output, even if they may kill a single unit a little bit quicker. So at this point in the game, we're 25 harvesters to 14, so this this Zerg player really is not spending anything on drones. He's in such a bad position now that there's not a whole lot he can do, but basically take a big risk. Now, we actually have mutas in the main now, so you can try and do something with this, but the supply is almost double for a Terran opponent. Miss Micro there, going to lose a medevac. No, they actually all survived. This one, just 6 HP remaining. Now Bob was of course aware of the spires, so he could have been prepared for this ahead of time. Would have only really needed 1 missile turret per mineral line just to stall those mutas, but 6 mutas, not really much of a threat. May be able to take them out a single missile turret, but not really worth it. They're going to swing around again to the main. See the army back out in front. We actually do have 2 engineering bays. We're getting double upgrades, so we do not have an armory, so we actually can't continue with those double upgrades, and we don't really have the economy to keep up with those upgrades. If we look at the production tab, we're actually not building any units despite floating 1,000 minerals, so we want to be constantly producing out of these barracks. The mute is swinging around the back, going to focus down the mule. Mules are always a better target than SCVs. It really hurts to have one of those taken out. Now finally building a missile turret, but taking a lot of damage at this point. And this is actually letting Woodrow back into this game, doing a lot more damage than he should, as the army is counterattacking across the field. So we'll see how this works out. It is turning into a base trade. Bob taking his time, but with those mutas, he is a bit on the clock. A bit of an awkward maneuver moving these tanks to the high ground before the rest of his army. These could have just been picked off by Lings. But now moving up his army. With Banelings, there are various micro things you can do. Splitting, target firing with tanks, target firing down Banelings as you kite them back. But at lower levels, it's probably best just to stim and run back to your tanks and let them auto fire onto those as best they can. So here come the Banelings running back, no stim, actually picks up. So that was actually a very nice maneuver, picking up, but actually not dropping again, so loses a medevac. Unfortunately not one that is full. Drops back down again and looking in a good position. These mutas here still doing damage. Finally now producing again. He could be producing out of all of these barracks. He could be producing 4, 6, 7 Marines right now. He's only producing 2, 6 and 1 Marauder. Not sure why he's building the Marauder, because they can't shoot up. He's looking pretty good here on the low ground. Looks like he's going to be able to move in. I'm not sure if there's anything that Woodrow's going to be able to do. Actually, these Banelings could take out the bio, but not the tanks. Picks up again very nicely. Drops down the tanks to take out the Banelings, so that was actually quite well done there by Bob. And I don't see anything left that can stop his army. There's nothing left for the Woodrow. Virtually no mining left. Actually managing to build 7 more Mutalisks. Not taking care of these 2. And actually managing to lose his orbital commands. So this could have been held, managed a bit better. These SCVs could have repaired. These Marines could have stopped those mutas, but mutas pop out, they died. GG. Bob takes it. So this is, in large part, generally one of those games where it really is a matter of, if you macro better, you can just macro your way to victory. Constantly produce SCVs, expand early and often. Produce out of your structures, spend your money is basically all it is. That's the route to improve, and applies almost all the way through, though definitely different tactics come up. So